Hello, my astrology friends. This is Lada from astrolada.com. And today, my guest is astrologer Jaymie. Hello, Jaymie.
Hi, Lada.
I'm very excited because you came up with another topic that people absolutely love boundaries, which many of us don't have the ability to say no. This is a very dear topic to me. Can you tell us what your findings are and how you mix that with astrology?
Yes. So my whole thing is this is a message that I really wanted to share for empaths, highly sensitive people, and people who struggle with boundaries. And oftentimes, what I notice is that people don't realize how much power you actually have. And so, some of it is how you're using the energy in a limited way. So, there's esoteric and physical ways that are tied to being an empath because of the signs that rule being an empath and stuff. But one of the things that I do as like a big shift, because I feel like there's a lot of narrative that is really problematic around empath, which I think is disempowering, that I do want to mention. And there's also things where, like, it's very well intentioned, but even in therapy, the recommendations that they give to create boundaries astrologically don't make sense. So I want to talk about what all of this means. And one of the first things is that I want to shift the narrative. So, what I say, the way I describe empaths is I say that you're a badass energy bitch. That's my big thing because so many times people are like, oh, like I can't get what I want, or I have to put everyone first, or I'm always drained because I'm an empath. And it's like, no, that's not the way it doesn't have to be that way. And luckily, this narrative no longer seems to be the case, but I think that like people aren't perpetuating it anymore, but I think that we haven't actively unlearned it, which is that a lot of times people say you have to protect your energy as an empath. And it's like, not necessarily. Sometimes, yes, but not every environment is or should be dangerous, which means you shouldn't always have to protect your energy. In safe spaces, you don't have to do that. So your environment does matter. So that's part of it. But on an astrological level, when we're talking about being an empath, these are things related to Neptune, Pisces, and stuff. It's the opposite spectrum of Virgo. Libra also plays a role with
As
one
a,
on
as
one
a
and kind of
pleaser,
losing yourself.
as a pleaser.
Exactly. Yeah. And it's also related to Cancer as well. And so I'll talk about what all of this means, but I think one of the biggest things that makes it difficult for empaths is that a lot of the existing tools don't necessarily make sense. That when people are operating as an empath from the perspective of being a Pisces, and a lot of the recommendation is they're like, you have to verbalize your boundaries. This is the narrative. This is what you have to say. When you're in the energy of Pisces or Neptune, it's about silence. You're ruled by a fish that doesn't speak.
Yeah.
So the opposite sign has the opposite energy, which is Virgo. And because it's opposite, and Pisces is about dissolving boundaries, Virgo is about creating boundaries and it's about speaking, but it's the opposite sign. It's the farthest place you have to travel to. Pisces is the laziest sign. And when they're navigating, they're basically a fish in water on Earth. There's no water. And even if there is, it's very hard for them to kind of direct their way. So it's like, even if they try to aim towards, I'm going to go in the Virgo energy that's farthest away, they're going to get fatigued. They're going to get distracted. It's not the most sustainable thing. It's really difficult. And then even if they do get there, they're not used to speaking. It's so much harder to work from that space. And so it's not the most sustainable tool available. And that's why a lot of times it doesn't work. And what's interesting is that you'll hear a lot of dialogue around people who are passive aggressive. That passive energy is Pisces, the aggressive energy is Aries. The next sign in the next house is always the resource of the previous sign in the previous house. So oftentimes, a lot of people pleasers, something I'm going to say that's a little triggering, you guys, is I don't like the word people pleaser. It sounds really pleasant. And now I feel like people use it as like a badge of courage and like they over identify with it. Like when I was growing up, they were saying pushover, which wasn't like a happy title. So, that's the generation that we grew up in, a lot of.
Yes.
So it's like people weren't really proud of that. And I don't think that shame is better, but I think making it sound so pleasant, that's not great either. But I think the reality of the matter is, and this is painful to hear, but I like as a people pleaser, as a pushover, you're basically self-betraying yourself in the process. You're putting the needs of other people at your own expense, and there's a self-betrayal that's going on. And so when this is happening and you're in that energy, people are very passive. They're like losing themselves. And this sounds dramatic, but it's like there is a part of you on a metaphorical level that's dying, because that's the energy of Pisces. It's death, it's the dissolution of your identity. And so this is what's taking place. But the next sign is easier to access because it's closer to you than the energy of Virgo, of creating boundaries. And that's where people go from like not saying anything to kind of losing their shit and getting passive aggressive. And I'm not saying that that's like the healthiest way to do things, but there's that way where you can kind of work with that energy, and direct the anger in a healthy way. Hear me, because I'm going to keep talking.
Yeah, yeah, carry on. Sorry, you said like it finished somewhere where you said they're not necessarily able to access it, something like that.
Oh,
Hello?
okay, great.
Okay.
So, and the thing that I want to mention is that Venus is exalted in Pisces. And even if you don't have Venus in Pisces, you can behave in a way where you're bringing that Venusian energy into where Pisces is in your chart, where there can be people pleasing. This isn't necessarily the area that you're operating out of, but I'm just using this as an example. And so the reason why I bring this up is that Venus is exalted in Pisces, and Pisces and Taurus, like there are basically Taurus is a resource. There's 60 degrees away from each other, so or about so there's like this energy where they support one another, and Taurus is about your core values, and your core values are a resource of your anger. And Taurus is about the best way for you to support you in your physical body and stuff. You look like you're contemplating, Lada.
Yeah, yeah, I'm
Do
trying to yeah.
You're
Here.
usually like something to say. I was like, why does she look confused? Was
No,
I
no,
unclear?
no. It's Mercury
Okay.
retrograde. I'm confused.
Oh, that's true.
I'm slow to react, so
That's true. You're usually very, very quick. Um, yeah, but like the thing is, our core values are ruled by Taurus. It and our second house. So it's things that support us in our physical body. It's about how we take care of ourselves, and one of the best ways that we can take care of ourselves. So our core values are a great resource in using that energy. And a great way to identify what your core values are is think about the shit that viscerally pisses you off. This is an indicator that your core values aren't being met. And so you can use sort of that asset. And Taurus also rules your voice, but it's more like Taurus rules infants, so it's like babies discovering their voice for the first time, not so much necessarily speaking, which is the energy of Gemini. And that's the other thing, is that when well-intentioned psychologists and a lot of these support groups about people pleasing are like, you need to speak up, you need to voice your opinions, you need to do this, you're now in the energy of Mercury, right? But the first sign that Mercury rules is Gemini. They rule toddlers that are speaking for the first time. If you don't have a lot of experience speaking up, you might not sound very clear. People might be confused, you might be confused. And so like it doesn't always work out in the best way. And even if you say things but you don't mean it, and you're not stable and stuff, and people aren't necessarily respecting your boundaries, then there's sort of this issue that's taking place where you need to feel it and live it and breathe it first. And this is really important, and something that I've never heard anyone talk about is that because empaths are ruled by Pisces, and Pisces rule the spiritual realm, the energy esoteric realm, you actually have a lot of power. But the problem that's happening, because there's a lot of dialogue around empaths where, and you guys, I say this with love, this is more from the energy of like empath, from like the perspective of like the Libra, because Saturn is exalted in Libra. it's some accountability. Like a lot of dialogue around being an empath is like around people taking advantage of you, people not respecting your boundaries. And that's a very real thing. But not every empath is attracting people who are malicious. Some people genuinely don't know better, or it can be whatever else is going on. But if you're having difficulty with boundaries, there's a beacon that you are releasing as well that's taking place on an energetic level. And so there's you have an ability to be a shapeshifter of reality, and this is really important. And then the other thing is that oftentimes the reason why empaths are getting overwhelmed is because your volume for everyone else's voice and their problems is turned all the way up, and your needs are on mute. And then the thing is, and this is a little bit of a sensitive topic, but empaths are becoming an empath, it's a trauma response. So the reason why there's a dynamic between and a trauma bond between narcissists and empaths, and I want to be careful about this because a lot of people get really upset about narcissists, and I want to be really clear. I'm not excusing the behavior of narcissists or anything like that. I'm just sharing the origin story and why there is a trauma bonding between them is that both narcissists and empaths, they are a trauma response. They just respond differently to the trauma. So the narcissists learn there is an abuser and a victim, and they realize, I don't want to be the victim. So then they become the abuser, not necessarily initially because they want to harm, but because they don't want to get hurt. Again, not excusing their behavior, just explaining the process. Because if you ever notice, narcissists are practically like, they're borderline addicted. They are so aggressive and abusive that like they could take a month off, their victims are still destroyed, and yet they are compulsively, aggressively just pounding you, pounding you, pounding you, because in their mind they're like, if I don't do this, I'm going to be the victim, right? Whereas the empaths learn the world is unsafe. I need to become hyper vigilant. I need to sense and know everyone and everything around me so that I can mitigate, I can redirect, I can protect myself. They choose self-awareness to try to navigate it, but they are still both sides of the same coin where they're still trauma, there's still a trauma response. And so something to know is that when you're in a state of trauma, everything seems like you're hyper alert to the biggest threat, the loudest noise. Like I'm really good at crisis management. And like if I'm in a situation where there's crisis management, I'm looking around to be like, where's the biggest threat? You know, and if a kid is screaming Hail Mary, we all rush over to make sure the kid is okay. You know, like no one is rushing over to the quiet war vet who is like bleeding to death. You know, like you need to pay attention to that. So it's like the thing is, empaths are operating out of this trauma response. So you're instinctively going to the loudest noise, not necessarily the most important noise. And it's because your vibrational settings are off. So there, it's like you have to learn to get used to understanding the value of how things sound and what they actually mean, what you're interpreting, what you're perceiving, what's actually going on. And this is where the energy of Venus with Pisces is really important, that discernment. Taurus is an earth sign. Taurus is discerning. It rules hearing. It's important to learn to hear before you learn to speak. So it's like you and babies learn to speak, I mean, hear before they're speaking, you know, like they hear noise from the womb. So you want to start to learn like the things that you're hearing instead of reacting. It's like, wow, that sounds really loud. Is it actually loud? Is it actually unsafe? Is there something else that I need to be listening to instead that is more important and stuff? Because when you're traumatized, things sound differently. Like I've just normalized how things sound, but I realize that when I'm stressed and I'm overwhelmed, things sound sharp. And I just assumed they sound sharp. But when I laid down and I closed my curtains because I didn't feel like things were too bright, the same AC noise started to sound softer. So your environment and your state of mind really influences how you perceive things to be, how you are hearing, how you are seeing things, how you are tasting and sensing things. And Taurus rules the five senses. And oftentimes the empaths are so disconnected from themselves, they're not in their physical body. And that's the other reason why empaths are constantly like, they're like, oh, I'm always drained because I'm an empath. And it's like, your energy is outside of your body. That's the other reason, people don't realize that. And then they think, oh, these other people are draining. But it's like the reason why people are blowing you up, calling you up, is because wanting your support is because your energy is all up in their space. So they're like, oh, let me call so and so. Let me call, like they're gonna help me because you're there.
Mm.
And people don't realize that because they're not in their body. So this is something where like they're disconnected. And then the next sign of Taurus is Gemini, which is regulating your nervous system. So it's like doing this is really important. And so there's a lot of these different things that I think people aren't doing that I think is so important. And this is something that I'm passionate about because I've taught teaching courses around this for Your Badass Energy Bitch. And for the longest, I didn't think I was an empath because I didn't struggle the way a lot of other people did. But it's because, I mean, I'm a water dominant sign, I'm a Cancer rising, I'm a Pisces, I'm sun sign, but my sun is in planetary joy. It has exclusively positive aspects. I have indicators in my chart that even though I'm an empath, I don't struggle with a lot of these things because I've had multiple lifetimes working through it. So I have an understanding of how being an empath works, but I don't fall for like a lot of the same traps. And so what I notice is because I can see energy. And one of the things in the coaching program I noticed is that some people's energy, they're like a sponge. So you can't change a sponge. You can't tell a sponge to not absorb energy, but you have to have maintenance. You have to wring it out. I saw someone else whose energy it was like a river and they're like a water. And the other energies that was coming in was like Gatorade or chocolate milk or strawberry. And he knew that. And it's about filtering the energy out. So it's all about the other thing is that you have to know who you are. Um, and the thing with me is that because I have such a strong sense of identity, it's also easy for me to differentiate and the different sensations that I'm picking up on. And a lot of times the empaths are described in a very one-dimensional way of it just being emotional. But empaths can be claircognizant, they could be clairsentient. It can show up in so many different ways. So for me, I generally feel it or I transmute it in a cerebral way, right? And then I'm like, oh, in my 12th house, I also have Gemini, so it's a very like cerebral sign. And so because I know myself, I'm like, I don't talk like that. I don't think like that. So I'm like, whose thoughts am I channeling? Who am I picking up on? But if it's emotional, there are people where I'm wrong to me. So really understanding that is
Jaymie,
really important to know like which is your energy, which isn't your energy. Often, I'm
I,
sorry,
I lost you for 30
I
seconds.
can't hear you.
I I lost
Oh,
you for 30 seconds there.
oh,
It keeps showing your
oh, what
internet
was the last thing you
is going
heard?
down. Your internet keeps going to red, to yellow, sometimes to white, but not sure why. But anyway, hope it doesn't happen anymore.
Okay. Um, we're sorry, you guys. It's Mercury retrograde. Uh, but I don't remember the last thing that I said. Do you remember the last thing you heard?
Uh,
Because I don't know where I got cut off.
Seriously, I don't.
The blind leading the blind.
That you were cerebral about the 12th
Um,
house. That was it. Cerebral because you have.
oh, yes. So there's different ways. Yeah. Yeah, so there are different ways that people can be an empath, and a lot of the information around being an empath is emotional. So I also want to give resources where it's like, well, what if your gifts aren't emotional in nature? Then how do you deal with that? But regardless of the manifestation, a lot of it boils down to when you know who you are, you don't get confused, you don't get overwhelmed because when you know who you are, it's a built-in boundary. So that's the first thing. And that's why Pisces being an empath, the next resource is Aries. Aries is a very independent sign. So you have to know who you are. And that's the thing that's like helped me so much is that for me, I'll pick up on like people's thoughts and I'm like, that doesn't sound like me at all. Right. So I know that it's not me. And I'm like, who the fuck am I picking up on? And people their psychic energy has no barriers. But that doesn't mean, and I'm psychic, it doesn't mean people want me to see and hear what they're exposing. So I create barriers up because I'm like, I don't want to deal with that shit. So I have different like settings too and stuff. So there's that. But like when I pick up on things emotionally, like I remember I had this neighbor who was an Aquarius rising, Pisces sun and moon, Mercury and Venus and Aries, and we were neighbors. So like and it was all this intense energy. And I'd be like, what the oh, that's your energy. And I'm like, are you okay? And he's like, yeah, it's just a Tuesday. And I'm like, oh, okay. Like, you get used to people's like also like baselines and stuff like that. So there are things that you can do. The more you know yourself, the more it's going to help you. The other thing is when you're operating as an empath out of Libra, it's a little bit different from when people are operating as an empath, and not even I wouldn't even say like empath, but like people pleasing, or when you are kind of like betraying yourself in the name of someone else. With Pisces, it's almost like the Cinderella energy, wanting to like do things for people, and it's going through the motions, and it's inclusive of like everyone. Whereas when it's from the energy of Libra, it's like more relationship oriented, client oriented. It's a
You
little bit
want
more
to be like,
selective,
you
but
want
it's
to be like
also like
and not
getting,
rejected. Yeah.
yeah, yeah, exactly. Pisces are doing it like it just makes them feel better. Like it's like it alleviates this like discomfort. Whereas Libras want to be like, so it's like if they know one thing about you, they're like, oh, you like food. I'm gonna get you food. Oh, you like purple. I got you this food in this purple bowl. Like they're trying to one up it constantly. That's the energy of like Libra. And so they really take the time to get to know you. And the people pleasing is more like the self approval. And what's happening is that like the 12th house from Libra is a Virgo, which is the preteen, the insecure, anxious girl and stuff like that. And when she doesn't, when she has a weak sense of self and she is feeling like super anxious, the energy gets externalized in Libra as wanting external validation and approval. So that's where the energy shows up. But Saturn is exalted in Libra. So in this case, working with the energy of Saturn and having boundaries is going to be really beneficial. So where you have Saturn in your chart, it's important to work with that energy every day, both natally, where it is in the sky currently, and stuff. But even if the area where you are having boundary issues is separate from where you have Saturn, which can very much be the case, because with Saturn, you might have really good boundaries. The more you still reinforce those boundaries, the more that can help the boundary challenged areas. And so I was saying to Lada before the call that, like, for me, I have Saturn, which is about boundaries, in my fifth house, which is self expression, my own business, in Scorpio, which is astrology, very psychological. And I have an astrology business that's very like psychological in nature. I have a stellium here, which is when you have three or more planets in a single zodiac sign in a single house, or when it's like within 30 degrees of each other, and it takes on a lot of energy. And so I have this placement here. This is where I have really good boundaries. I also have the co-rulers Mars and Pluto here. And so for me, expressing boundaries around my business and kind of going down the rabbit hole works really well for me. And so with my first video that I did with Lada, it was really popular. I think it got like over 10,000 views in like the first 2 days. So if you guys haven't watched it, please check it out. I talk about like the best way for you to process your traumas based on your unique chart placements. And a lot of people, I got a lot of emails from people who were like, can you give me a discounted or a free reading and stuff? And you guys, I'm an empath, but I am really not the one. I have really, really good boundaries. And Saturn is about structuring, it's about systemizing, automating, being productive. Fifth house is about educating. So I incorporated all of these things and I created a PDF for FAQs for existing customers, FAQ for prospective clients. And what I first did is, because Saturn also rules time, I said, thank you for your inquiry. I'm happy to answer your question. But before we get started, just some quick notes. And then I set a standard about time, saying that for international solo businesses, it's normal for response times to be three to 5 business days. And I wrote down like the standards, and then I proceeded to address the questions. And I mentioned that a lot of these questions are found in the FAQs. And then I wrote down with like emojis and like in italics to make it stand out. I didn't put it in bold because I think it's condescending. But I was like, for your question, the answer could be found in. And so for the people who, and I write down like the number that they can like look to in the PDF. And for people who are asking for the discounted and free services, I mentioned that I was like, I completely understand the financial challenges is real as a woman of color. I understand that this is the thing. This is why I'm really generous with a lot of the information that I share. Please take advantage of my free resources and then implement them, get to a place where you can afford my readings and then they'll be available, and so to create that boundary. Now, for me, I personally took it a little further. I don't recommend this for most people. Keeping in mind, I have a Scorpio stellium and I've got Scorpio and then Mars and Pluto here. So it's like trigger, trigger, trigger kind of energy. So I created a little trigger post warning and I said that, and I mentioned that, so like something that I noticed is that people who recognize value are going to see the value, whether it's through my free or my paid services, and tend to take advantage of the free offers that are available before sliding into my DM to ask me to compromise my pricing standards and my boundaries. And so I even said that paying is optional, and if you didn't implement the readings before, if you didn't implement the free resources before sliding into my DM to ask for a discount, I'm not sure if right now is the best time for you to take advantage of my paid offers because it's important to recognize value first, right? And once I said that, and I said it respectfully, but I said it from a place of like educating, and I gave information and I worked with my energy. If someone doesn't have my placement, it's probably not going to work well. And literally people stopped emailing me, asking me for free offers. I got more clients, both in my personal business through you, through other resources. And actually, someone that from over 10 years ago that I haven't talked to, an old friend who stopped talking to me because I think she felt guilty for not paying me back or not being able to pay me back, reached out to me and was like, I just want to apologize for how selfish I've been. And I'd like to pay you back. Please let me know how I can. So I like sharing my stories because it always blows the minds of people pleasers because they're just like, what? I profit a lot from calling out problematic behavior, but that's because it's in my chart. For other people, it might show up differently. But this is just an example of like how you can use this energy in a way that can support you, that's going to be unique to every individual. But these are methods that I find tend to work a little bit better before just jumping into the energy of Virgo, which is like, this is someone who has evolved from the preteen who is anxious and insecure and is grown into an adult who thrives under pressure, is able to problem solve, is able to advocate, and that energy doesn't necessarily work the best if they're not there yet. And it's difficult to tell someone to speak their truth and their boundaries when their nervous system is dysregulated as well. They don't feel, and then the next sign from Gemini is Cancer, which is you have to feel safe in your physical body. If you don't feel safe in your physical body, if you don't feel safe in your environment, you're not going to speak up. I'm very, very good at speaking up and expressing my boundaries. But the few times that I haven't, honesty is one of my core values. It used to eat away at me, and I would literally call my friend like, I was just lying and I've just been like at the park just tapping and I'm just so like upset. And they're just like, it's because it's an unsafe environment. And then sure enough, it was, and I didn't realize it. So, you need to feel safe, and then you need to be able to express yourself from a place that feels good, a place of confidence. That's the Leo energy. And then you go into the energy of Virgo, so there's all of these steps that are so important to go through that I think are
But it starts
often
with
overlooked.
Aries.
And
The first, right?
Mhm.
So you first get angry.
Yeah.
Kind of, I
Okay.
think it's normal that you first get angry that your
It
boundaries have been crossed.
And that's one of the things that really bother me about the binary way of when people talk about higher and lower manifestations of feelings and they're like, anger is bad, and it's like, no, it's actually sacred. And psychologists actually say that you get angry when you know you deserve better. And this is why they actually red flag well-behaved teenagers, and they'll actually call the parents in certain countries because they'll be like, your child is very well behaved. What kind of abuse is going on? Because it's not normal for teenagers to be well behaved. It's the age appropriate thing is to test your boundaries. And I have a lot of friends who are doctors and they hate it when their kids are acting out, but they're just like, I can't I can't put that fire out because that's going to be the thing that helps them when they get older. All I can do is redirect it, but I cannot blow the flame out because then they're going to become a victim when they get older. And so it's this thing that's so important that you actually want to get angry as a people pleaser. I mean, try to maybe not do it around other people. Maybe try to do it in your own home environment, at the gym, find a safe place to do it, but you want to connect with it. But before, the other thing I want to mention is on an esoteric level, when you have really, really good boundaries. Because even though I say I have really good boundaries, because I have good boundaries, sometimes I forget that I have to practice it in the real world because boundaries and dissolving the boundaries, that's the esoteric world, the spiritual realm. When you are in that space, it's not even coming to me because I'm dissolving like the bullshit before it even shows up. And a great example is for those of you guys who've watched and I don't know if you've seen this, Lada, but the original TV show Charmed, the first series about the three sisters that are witches. So one of the characters, Phoebe, is she's her first abilities grew as she had premonitions. And she felt like really shitty because she was like, it's such a passively gift. And then she learned to levitate. It was action oriented, right? And like she was a fighter. So it's like funny because she went from Pisces to being an Aries, right? And then she evolved into being an empath. So the way that she fought is if she was fighting a demon that had a fireball, right? And the demon wanted to throw the fire at her and she channels their feelings, she channels it to throw the fire back at yourself. Don't throw it at me. And then the fireball so if I was trying to throw a fireball at you and you use your empathic abilities, you throw the fireball back at me and I die. So it's like, and I'm not suggesting, I mean, this is a skill that people empaths can access. I don't recommend it because you don't want to change people's feelings. You don't want to go into people's like psyche and that's invasive. But this is to say that a lot of people think that they are helpless, but in reality, you have the ability to you penetrate boundaries. You can get into someone's mind and be like, I don't want you to put me in this situation, and they'll back off. Again, I'm not telling you to do that, but I want you to realize the power that people possess because people are so impressed with teleportation and telekinetic abilities. That happens in the energetic realm. That's the same thing with empathic abilities. You just don't realize the power. So this is very much like I don't go and like manipulate people's energies, but what I will do is like if I'm sensing an energy of someone or something is coming to me and it's unwanted, I'm like, redirect the energy. I'm like, universe, take it somewhere else. Like, yes, I want to support people, but if it's to the point where it's going against my boundaries, it's not something that I want to do, it's disrespectful to me, or I'm just tired and stuff, I just ask the universe to redirect it like it's GPS. So that's something that you can do as well. There's so many ways to work with your energy as an empath because energy manifests in four ways: emotionally, psychologically, physically, and spiritually. So emotionally, you can shift the energy through your feelings. As an empath, you feel deeply. So if you turn your feelings up really strong and make your feelings more important than other people, and you create the energy of, I don't want to deal with this because this is breaching my boundaries, the other people's energy will go away and leave. So there's, and sometimes some people, it's better to use that energy in a psychological approach instead of emotional, but you can use it to like basically the most powerful energy tends to dominate. And people don't realize as an empath, you're accessing your energy, the other energy of people around you and stuff, but you have to one, bring your energy back. And a lot of times empaths are so busy treating all these other people. And yes, you're getting drained, but a lot of times it's a way to not have to deal with your own shit too. So also using the energy of like, if you were, because Aries is what inspires you to take action, right? And stuff, but it's like Pisces is the energy of dreaming, right? So visualize if you were to dissolve the boundaries, what would you do? What action would you take? Who would you be? What would you do? Right. And you use that creative, visualizing, imaginative energy of Pisces to think about the action that you'll take as Aries and stuff. And that's a way that you can also sort of shapeshift your reality as well that people aren't really using. So there's so many different ways you can change it on a spiritual level, you could change it on a physical level, emotional, psychological level. Like you actually have more power than other people, but you have to know how to use it. And that's where I think a lot of people get confused. I do think that verbalizing things is important, but I think that's also looking at where Mercury is in a person's chart, as well as where Mercury is right now. Sometimes the dialogue and the narrative that they're taught in these programs don't work with what's most communicative for you. Mercury is about communication, it's about support, it's about collaboration. It's the planet that supports everyone to a certain degree. So you can use Mercury to help you. But if you don't have a really good Mercury, then maybe you can look at where Gemini or Virgo is in your chart, or what's going on in your third house. Do you have any planets here? What's the ruler of your third house? Is it better aspected? What about your fifth house? Maybe your fifth house of self-expression is better. Maybe your sun is better placed. So there are different ways to communicate depending on what's going on in your chart that makes it easier for you to get comfortable expressing yourself. You have unique needs and what you need to feel comfortable, and how the best way to communicate that's going to make other people cooperative and receptive too. Like some people, they're not ready for the change. They want the benefits of the change, but their nervous system isn't ready. So you guys unknowingly will use an approach that's actually designed to self-sabotage creating boundaries. So sometimes it's about knowing what's actually going to be the best for you, but also preparing yourself so that you can actually execute it in a way that's going to be successful. So these are just sort of some insights that I wanted to share with you guys.
Yeah, I consider myself an empath and
Oh, you definitely
people
are.
pleaser. But I cannot verbalize it. That's the hardest. So I feel this Virgo, the opposite. I could not, and I would much rather become passive aggressive, get angry, do even self-harm than confront a person. And I've even self-sabotaged myself. Or there was a moment when I was in business with someone, I was ready to close the business. So because I could not tell them directly no in the face. So I'm one of the worst, pleasers. And so how do we fix that? Do we go to Saturn, you said? We enforce.
So, I mean, for Aquarius risings, and you know what I noticed? A lot of Aquarius risings are actually have a harder time with people pleasing more than Pisces risings, I've noticed sometimes. Um, is because your 12th house also rules you. So your psychological downfall, your subconscious and unconscious mindset has this idea of like success and it wants to be security oriented and stuff. So it makes sense that like, especially you said in business, you wanted to shut it down. Business
I was like,
is
I was doing
Capricorn, shut it
astrology
down. That's
just so
12th
I
house.
don't
You wanted
have
to
to.
dissolve it before
I was
speaking.
ready to delete my channel to do astrology because I didn't know how to tell them that I don't want to work with them anymore.
Oh my God.
My husband thought I was crazy, but uh,
I'm on his side.
I and
Oh,
I cannot
Cancer.
say no to people. It's my response is not to meet people and to isolate.
And that's yeah, that's definitely a manifestation in your chart. But part of it is like there is a self-sabotaging energy associated with success with Cancer, Capricorn, and being security oriented. So this is also working with the energy of essentially finding other material, tangible ways to ensure your security so you don't feel like it's going to dissolve, so you don't feel this fear and this threat. And also, I would say, like, even going to sleep, like having some pre-recordings of meditation, because you do have Libra in your ninth house of your higher purpose and stuff, where you see things from a higher perspective, where you're using your, like, where the voice is being used. Your moon is in Libra, so it's your voice, or even your husband's voice. Actually, I like the
No,
idea of your
in
husband's
Leo,
voice.
in Leo.
Huh?
Moon in Leo,
Your moon is in Leo, right? Yeah, yeah, yeah. I'm sorry, I skipped.
seventh
Your
house.
moon is in Leo, and your husband is your seventh house.
Yeah.
Um, and so I was thinking using his voice because you have Libra in your ninth house of seeing things from a higher perspective. So maybe using your spouse as a voice, doing a pre-recording and listening to something, especially since he's your source of security. Like he really helps to
What I
stabilize
do
you in this
is when I have to say
reality.
no or do something, I make him do it for me. And I say, you're the head of the company, write them an email.
Oh my God.
So I'm
Poor
using,
him. Sissy.
but since I've had success, it's easier. Maybe Capricorn in the do you say the 12th house is uh where our lack of boundaries is. And I think since I've had success, which is Capricorn, it's been easier for me to say no. But it's when you're empath, people sniff it out. I mean, I met my neighbor once. We just had sat once, sat
Yeah.
and talked, and this neighbor then the next day asked me for $80,000. I'm like, why do people think they can, kind of
You
eh,
have
yes, and it's always
money?
happens to me. People come to me and
I know, I'm sorry, that's
ask
not the
for
point.
the things because they think I'm really like this kind of blob that doesn't have any boundaries, and I agree on everything. And it's but what should I work with the Saturn? You said you should work with Saturn basically. What? So I guess we're gonna do another
Yeah, you have
detail.
Saturn in your ninth house too, right?
Yes. So
Yes.
boundaries with my dad. I don't
Yeah, we're gonna do another.
very hard because the ninth house is the dad in ancient astrology, and I started working with
Yeah.
a psychologist to say no to my dad because he comes to my house whenever he does. He shouts, gets upset. I'm the worst parent. I'm this. Why is this on the floor? And we started working so I can say no to my dad. And I take care of them financially, everything. I take care of the whole family, but he kind of has no boundaries towards me. And I've been working with that, but it's very hard to verbalize it. And it's easier for me to go live in America than learn to put boundaries for him.
You have
But yeah,
you're,
that's what's been helping
that
me.
is everything you've said for like different manifestations.
Yeah,
Because the ninth
that's what
house
I
is
did
also foreign
because
travels, and you're like, oh, countries.
no, that's what I do. I was saying to my
Yeah.
husband,
You have
we should sell our house and move somewhere else. And that we actually left the house because I didn't want to see the neighbor because he kept asking me for $80,000. And I'm like, it's very hard for me to say no. So we moved in. I'm like, I don't want to be around there. So I really want to learn how to do the boundary. Yes, I say no, but then I feel guilty and I start thinking, how can I find this money for him and give it?
yeah.
It's very difficult. It's painful. That's my biggest problem in life. So it's sometimes I just don't want to be around any people. So
I
uh,
mean, your moon,
yeah, do
I
you
mean,
work through
your
Saturn?
moon is also your feelings is in the house of everyone else.
Mm-hmm.
So, but also like that goes back to integrating the shadow. I mean, honestly, I'm pretty familiar with your chart, and so like with you, it's kind of doing the hard stuff, because you have a lot of like oppositions and stuff. So it's like integrating the shadow qualities of your moon belonging to like thinking about everyone else and they're being dramatic and you're feeling guilty and you want to give, and so you need to bring that feeling back into yourself through like creative expression and speaking, maybe even doing like role play with your husband and other people to actually practice that? Because you do have Saturn exalted in Libra, right?
Yes.
You have Saturn in your ninth house?
What I've done it is that I
Yeah,
let
so doing one-on-one.
put others before me. So people, before they can get to me, they get to a few, like an administrator and whatever, because I can never say
Oh
no.
yeah, no, I mean,
And I don't read emails
yeah.
anymore, because when I used to, I would have 1,000 emails today, so I would want to answer and give for free readings to everyone. So I'm like, okay, I put hoops. And I used to do a few hours of free horoscopes per day, because people ask me and I cannot say no. So I said, I'm not gonna read them. I'm not gonna
Oh,
putting those, like this
yeah.
other people. But
Yeah.
would you focus on
Where's your
Saturn?
Jupiter? Where's your Jupiter and your Neptune's in its 12th house. Where's your Jupiter?
Jupiter is in the ninth house, conjunct Saturn.
Oh, with Sa Oh, okay, the resource of your father. Okay, so it's like the second house is the resource, but they're not always good inherited resource. Um, Forgiveness work, Trump. Actually, why am I trying to? Let me look at your chart.
Oh, no, not in public. Let's
Oh,
jump. I don't want to talk about
okay.
it. So the next video we'll do, you talk about the 12 signs, how they will to cope with
The best way for them to practice boundaries for each rising sign.
so what are
Yeah,
you gonna
I'll
look
go
at?
into
At the
the
12th
specific one.
house. You're gonna
I'm
look
sorry?
at the 12th house.
Honestly, it depends.
Okay,
Like, for some people, like if it's Gemini, I'm looking at like where, like the first and the fourth house. With Cancer, I might be looking at like, oh, your home and your first house. With other ones, I'm looking at fixed stars. I try to make it different for each of them, so
So each of the
I always
12
switch it up. I get
risings.
40 sleep.
So each of the 12
Yeah.
rising will have, okay, so I want people to look forward to this next video, because we're gonna Jaymie, not me, because I can't wait to hear that, will give us the perspective for
Yeah.
how to have best boundaries according to your rising sign. And I can't wait also to hear mine, because as you can see, I'm logical.
Oh my
Mine is
God.
real bad. Real bad trauma.
I mean, I've seen your chart, so I knew, but I didn't know it was this bad. Although with you particularly, you definitely have to regulate your nervous system, but that's yeah.
Thank you so much,
Yeah.
Jaymie. Again, incredible
Yeah.
insights, very powerful. And again, I'll put this video towards in a playlist with all the other videos of Jaymie, so you can watch, because each video and interview with her is a gem, a burst of information and knowledge. Uh, she has so many ideas. We covered how to get cozy with money. This video can change people's lives. Go check it. The previous one, have a personal reading with Jaymie as well. Putting a link below if you
Yes.
want her, because again, a reading with her is like, whoa, you head spinning. So much information hitting every angle on so many different levels of life, psychological, practical, specific practical ideas about how to increase your business or your finances, and from psychological to practical. So incredible astrologer. Thank you so much, Jaymie, and looking forward to when you
Thank
cover the
you.
12 signs.
Yeah. Thank you. Yeah, really quickly, I think my favorite compliment that I've gotten about my reading was from one of your astrology collaborators, medical astrology, Dr. Maria Johnson. And she used to be a surgeon, and she was saying that the way because I did a reading for her son, and she was saying that the way that you analyze charts, she's like, it's like you're an astrological surgeon and you're going through every layer by layer by layer. And I was like, oh, I didn't think about that. And because I've been a medical researcher, so she described the metaphor as a lot of astrologers kind of stop at being like at a level of a nurse. And then she's like, and then there's the doctor, and then there's like the emergency doctor or like the emergency nurses, and then there's the surgeon. And so she's like, that's the level that you're at. And I was like, oh my God, thank you. Because I'm not thinking about surgery when
That's
I'm,
all your
doing
Scorpio energy there.
exactly. But when she said that, I was like, that actually makes a lot of sense.
Getting to
So
the
yeah,
bottom of it. Yes, absolutely.
yeah, I do.
Thank you so much, Jaymie. Thank you so much, everyone, for joining us.
Of
And
course.
tune in a few weeks to check the 12 signs and your boundaries. Thank you.
Yeah.